3 years for Eddie Perez. Was his sentence fair? Next. Welcome to the Stan Simpson Show, a program about Connecticut people and compelling issues. Make it a point to drop in every week, folks. Former Hartford Mayor Eddie Perez will serve 3 years in prison for his recent conviction on bribery charges. Our question, was the sentence fair? We'll pose that to two prominent local lawyers. Reese Norris and former Hartford State's Attorney Chris Morano are here. In our second segment, we'll talk to the two barristers and we'll talk about the gruesome murder trial in New Haven and the horrific details coming out about those slayings in Cheshire. Then we'll wrap things up with some politics. Get some insight from current reporter Daniela Altamari about upstart Linda McMahon's desire to deliver a beatdown to the well-established Dick Blumenthal in their now highly contested race for Senate. But first, 3 years for Eddie Perez, Reese Norris, Chris Morano and Reese, law firm in waiting, right? The only lawyers, I've had all the highest profile law firms to come on here. You guys know each other for a long time. Your thoughts on this decision? Fair. We heard everything from 90 days to 8 years. The end of the day was 3 years. Fair.
I think 3 years was a fair sentence. It always seems harsh to not only the defendant, but even more so to his family. There's a ripple effect in any sentence. But considering the exposure that Mayor Perez had under all of the counts that he was convicted, and taking into consideration both the benefits he had done for the city and this action, I think 3 years was a fair sentence.
You had Joe Ganim getting 8 years, John Rowland getting 1 year and a day. With this case, was this more about ethical transgressions that blurred the lines into criminality? Some people say, you know what, Joe Ganim and Eddie Perez, two different guys. That Eddie Perez wasn't Joe Ganim, didn't have his hand out. There were more ethical lapses that breached into the criminal realm. Thoughts?
Well, I don't know if they blurred in together, but I think one of the big differences for the sentence in me was that Eddie Perez never accepted responsibility. He never acknowledged that he committed a transgression. And I'm sure the judge took that into consideration in deciding what would be an appropriate sentence.
Now, great answer. Here's the point I'm making. If you're filing an appeal, right, here's the real problem for Perez. If you're filing an appeal, how much culpability can you take at sentencing if you're going to go to appeal and say, listen, this thing was the wrong verdict, right?
Well,
you jammed up.
In appeal, it's not going to be an issue of any of the facts. So it's going to be an issue of the law. And I think Reese and I will discuss that in a moment. What's going to be the key issue? Probably the joinder, the consolidation of the two cases together. So that's not going to be the issue. An appellate court's not going to look at whether he changes his mind and starts to show, I'm sorry, and gives the mea culpas. They're going to say, what happened in the four walls of the courtroom, and did it follow the law? And that's what an appeal will be decided upon.
So what if a guy really thinks at the end of the day they still didn't do anything legally wrong, that he made some transgressions? As an attorney, you say, listen, fall on your sword here, take the hit. Or if a person really feels that I didn't really do anything wrong, do you stick to your guns and pay the price?
It's a fine line to walk. But you have to show respect to the fact that a jury made a decision, and you have to show some humility and some mea culpas, as you said. But you also have to stand up to the fact that, you know what, the process that found me guilty had a legal flaw, and that's what I'm going to appeal.
To what degree, when you're the judge and you hear this sort of litany of testimony, the great guy, doesn't the judge already have his or her mind made up when this thing comes in? Why go through that dance? Is there really a chance a judge can have their mind dissuaded by all that testimony the day of the sentencing?
Absolutely.
Really?
I mean, judges listen to this. I was with Judge Dewey after the sentencing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What did she say?
And I won't tell you what she said, but I can tell you my impression was that a lot of those letters had a tremendous impact on her. That's the kind of judge she is.
But she read them prior to sentencing, so when you had them giving testimony at the day of the sentencing, is it really, doesn't she go over at night, figure out what she's going to do, and then it's kind of window dressing when these guys come in and do all this?
I don't feel it as window dressing. I think these judges realize these people have taken time from their busy lives to come here and express their feelings, and the judge deserves to give them the respect that she did. to let them say what they have to say and take it into consideration. So I don't think it's window dressing at all.
So it is weight.
And the letters are just one element that the judge is going to take into consideration. She's going to take into consideration the arguments of both defense counsel and the prosecutor, and also the statement made by the defendant himself. So while she may have an idea of where she's going, she's heard all the facts too. She's almost like an additional juror, but deciding the law. I think that the judge and any judge I've dealt with usually will wait until they've heard it all and then make their decision. In some cases, I think Reese and I have seen this, where judges have thought they were going to go one way, and after a sentencing presentation, they have gone another way.
All right, so the defendant and the testimony can dissuade the judge. Here's what Eddie Perez had to say final moments before his sentencing.
I have disappointed the people who have supported me in my efforts to improve the city. For this, I will never forgive myself. Each and every day, Your Honor, each and every day, for the rest of my life, I will make amends and pursue forgiveness.
Sympathetic, if you're a judge in that?
That's
Convincing?
the fine line that I was speaking about. He didn't make any admissions, but what he did do was to show some humility, some mea culpas. You know, each and every day I will make amends. That's the fine line. Whether that was enough for the court, well, she commented on that later. But it's difficult, as you said. If you say, no, I'm still not guilty, even though a jury has said that, and I'm going to appeal it, for you to then go any further. But he did try to walk that fine line there. Whether it was successful and shave some time off, we'll never know. But we do know what the end result was, which was 3 years to serve.
I'm a layman. I have two attorneys here. In hindsight, it appears that Eddie Perez maybe could have avoided all of this. 3 mistakes he made. 1, lying to state prosecutors, right? When the state prosecutors come in to talk to you, never lie to them under any circumstance, right? And I would say number 2, not having a lawyer in the room when those state investigators wanted to talk to him in the first place. It seemed like that could have mitigated a lot of problems, having either Reese Norris or Chris Marana in the room to say, hang on, don't answer that question. He answered the question, you lied, and then tried to backtrack. Your thoughts on that?
I agree completely. We always talk to our clients about Martha Stewart. I think she's a great example of this, where she's investigated for insider trading, and what did she get convicted of? Lying to the investigator. There's a big lesson to be learned from Martha Stewart. And I know that I always err on the side of caution. And it's very rare that I'll have my client submit to an interview because you don't have control over it, and things can be twisted and turned. And I'd like to find out what they have to say rather than what my client has to say.
Could you have asked them, listen, put your questions in writing and my client will respond to you?
No, well, as a former prosecutor in this area, we'd say absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think in my new role as a defense attorney, I would mirror what Reese is saying, and I just say we politely decline to speak, and we're going to exercise our Fifth Amendment right. It can't be used against you, and you keep yourself from weaving a web that ensnares you.
We wouldn't be here today if you said that, right? If you had a chance to kind of regroup and say, I'm not answering that, then go back and get his thoughts together. Possibly, right?
But it certainly helped the state fill some of the voids. It's often the actions after an act. The cover-up was often worse than the crime, and in this case, his actions after that interview, or what he said during the interview, certainly helped fill some of the holes of the state's investigation and its successful case down the road.
And juries don't look too kindly when they see a public official, when they see that he's lied, they weigh that very seriously. They know that he can go there, right? They know you can go there.
They should. I mean, we expect integrity from our public officials. And when we find out they're lying, that's a problem.
All right, quickly, we have about 15 seconds left. Carlos Costas, when Eddie Perez lied and said that he had paid him, had he simply said during the interview that, you know what, I've been asking that guy for the bill and it hasn't come to me, which is what he said what happened during trial, that he was asking for a bill and never came, that also would have avoided this situation. Had he simply said, honestly, I've been asking for a bill, I haven't received it, and stopped there, that also would have possibly squashed this.
Well, possibly, but even more simply, if he'd said nothing, that would have been even better.
No comment. Get his lawyers, right?
That's right.
All right. When we come back, we'll come back to the lawyers. Which camera, 2? All right, we're going to come back with more of the barristers, and we'll continue our conversation. Next, we'll talk about the case coming up, the gruesome Cheshire murder trial. You've been watching that. The horrific slayings in Cheshire. We'll talk to our lawyers, get their thoughts. Don't go away.